We're going to start all over.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again,
yes, we had a whole conversation that nobody heard.
hey friends.
But it's good to be with you all. We are all on the Tuesday after a 3-day weekend. I mean, not that I really got a 3-day weekend, but we're on
literally
the Tuesday after a 3-day weekend struggle bus is our technology apparently. But this is Are You There, God? It's Kira and Phil, and you are Phil.
I am Phil, and you are Kira.
I am Kira.
Memory serves me well.
Priest in charge of St. Anne's in Nashville, Tennessee.
And I am Philip Duvall, and I'm a rector of Church of the Redeemer in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we do this show where we talk about kind of whatever you all want to talk about, whatever we want to talk about. Mostly God stuff, Jesus stuff, religious, churchy, Christian stuff, mostly.
And how that, relates to what's going on in the world.
If possible.
Mm-hmm.
If possible. We had a guest last week.
We did. That was
I hope
awesome.
you all saw that or listened to that later. We had our first ever guest on the show.
We did.
The Right Reverend
I guess
Susan
it wasn't
Brown
me.
Snook. I meant since we had our show together.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
We had the bishop, the Right Reverend Susan Snook. And if you missed that, I'd highly recommend going back and listening to it, because she she really preached some sermons in there.
Yeah. There was some proclamation and some learning going on there for sure.
Yeah. There were definitely a few times where I wanted to just
hands up. What was your favorite part? What was your favorite part from her?
Gosh, I think just hearing her talk, this is public, so I shouldn't necessarily say this. I think what I'm really longing for from my bishop is some kind of words of encouragement, not just like you guys are doing a good job, but this is the grand vision of what we're working towards, even though stuff is really hard right now. And I feel like I kind of got that from her, especially a vision of a church. I keep thinking about her saying that people say oh, there's too many churches for how many Episcopalians there are in whatever area in San Diego or, the broader diocese. And she's like, yes, but there are a lot of people out there that aren't Episcopalians yet who need the gospel, who need our particular witness, and there aren't enough churches for all of those people.
Right.
And I kind of keep thinking about that and how that might be true in my area, and whether how representative my parish is of the surrounding community, who's missing, who might not feel as welcome as I would like them to feel, just because of culture, community, the lingering effects of white supremacy, the kind of Anglo culture that gets kind of imported into the Episcopal Church in a lot of ways. A lot of food for thought, but also a lot of kind of encouragement in my mind.
Yeah, it didn't feel like this is bad, or you guys are doing it. I had a similar feeling of kind of being able to hear a bishop give a positive articulation of a future version of the church that could be present and active in the world today, that is, as you said, relevant, and that we can be a church that, I think that there's this weird low key, low self-esteem that's going on with the Episcopal Church.
Oh yeah. Oh, we're dying. This whole kind of
or even if or just sort of well, people, we're just some churches are just bound to be smaller. And it's no, you're right. They are. That's true. But also, if your neighborhood is growing, and it's growing with people that you think are wonderful people that could be benefited by your message about who Jesus is, and whose presence in your church could benefit you, what are we doing to draw them in?
Yeah.
Where is the invitation? Where is the evangelism to what we're doing? And that requires us to understand who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that. I liked that a lot. She's really, really wonderfully disarming and sort of like just and thoughtful. And she can make what's happening in here in her head and in her heart, like it comes out in a way that is very I mean, articulate's the easy way to say it, but it's more than that. Like she's a good communicator. I in the sense that I felt like we were really hearing from her. I can't imagine like how easy it must be being a bishop to sort of like resort to certain canned statements.
Right, you kind of end up with your like elevator speeches or
yeah. And if that's her version of a canned or elevator speech, like I felt really like it hit us in a different way than that. You know, I've also just been thinking what she was talking about at the beginning of the conversation with her last week, you know, where she'll hang out with bishops who were like, oh, I don't need to wear a purple shirt. And she's like, well, I kind of do.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm a woman and people won't actually treat me like a bishop, even sometimes with the purple shirt. But if I don't wear it, there will, you know, and that's been sitting with me because I have barely worn my collar since the pandemic started. And like right now I'm wearing like normal clothes underneath this and like normal pants. And like, I throw on the shirt and collar for the, like, not to ruin the magic, folks, but like, you know, and I'm realizing like, you know, part of that was I gained enough weight that my clothes don't fit well and I have to get new clothes. But the other part of that is like my design, like, oh, whatever. People know me.
People know I'm a priest.
And they do. But also like, all right, well, people know that like someone's a corporal, you know, this person's a captain in the army, so they don't have to wear their uniform. No, they still have to wear it, you know, like there's that sort of thing. Like, why are you wearing, I don't need to wear that white coat. People know I'm a doctor, you know, like, and then a woman would say, well, if I don't wear the white coat, people will think I'm a nurse, right?
Right.
So,
well, and vice versa. Like a lot of women who are doctors will wear their coat, have their badge, whatever, and walk into the room and people are like, yeah, can you get me the doctor? Like,
right. Right. Where's the priest?
Yeah.
So that just made me think about like, you know what? I need to wear my collar all the time and not for me, like actually, but like for my colleagues and for people like if this is the uniform, then I need to buck up and just wear the uniform.
Yeah.
And there's other niceties to which I don't have to, you know, and I don't have to sort of, you know, there's ways that we don't have to do all of it. And there's a preciousness that can come with a lot of our clerical stuff.
For sure. Yeah. And I think some of it is, you know, dependent on local culture, you know, not just local, like the city where you are, but even your congregation. You know, I had a weird experience this weekend. I was talking when we weren't on that I had taken an on-call shift for the hospital because they were in between CPE resident groups, and I was spending some time in the COVID ICU, and I was with a family, and I said, well, you know, if it would be, I was wearing my collar, I was, you know, and I said, well, if it would be helpful to you, you know, I'd be happy to pray for you. And the one woman turned to me and she said, well, are you a Christian? And I was like, yes.
Yes. I thought we were all on the same page about that, but I guess not.
Well, you know, I think especially around here, the collar on a woman like doesn't really,
it's like you're not even wearing it.
Yeah, like it's like that's a weird fashion choice, you know.
Right.
So that was just one of those times of like, wow, I thought I was kind of in the uniform projecting this kind of certain thing, and it was not being read at all by the people I was with, but it was read, you know, anytime I walk into a unit, definitely the staff, the nurses, anything, you know, they recognize it and they're like, okay, the chaplain's here, you know.
But it is one of those things where again, I have to be aware that like I could, as a straight white male, I could walk into any hospital room for the last 100, 200 years and they'd be like, father. And that's kind of nonsense. I mean, it's just like, I just have to be aware of that because I can fall out of awareness. Nothing I can do about it. It is what it is, but I can be aware of it. And that can, I just think, change the way I treat that, that reality, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking, so everyone who's watching, we recorded like 15 minutes earlier that no one saw, that'll never be seen, doesn't exist. But
just
we were
went
talking
out into the void.
Yeah, just went out into the void, like us screaming into the void now, but now this will be on public record. But we were doing this, and like we were talking about sort of the existential dilemmas of being clergy in the middle of this COVID pandemic. And the thing that I'm thinking about right now is just like, I don't know, like it has messed me up.
I'm super messed up. And I think all of us are. And if we're not admitting it to each other, it's like,
Yeah.
who are you fooling sort of at this point?
Yeah, I definitely don't. The last 18 months has definitely shortened my life and I think will shorten my career.
Mm.
I don't, maybe not like, I don't mean like drastically cut short. I'm not quitting anytime soon.
Right.
But I'm exhausted in a way that I don't know how it will just, when will that go away?
Yeah.
So when we get back to normal, what's that?
Yeah. Like,
because first of all, we're not going to get back to normal. And secondly, normal wasn't that great.
I know. I was telling my parents last night, they came over for dinner, that like, a lot of people, a lot of organizations and businesses and stuff are trying to hire right now, right? Like there's,
right.
And there's a local winery that's about 45 minutes away, has a lovely, grounds and everything. And I'm a wine club member. And so I get these emails and they're like, we're looking to hire like all these different roles. And part of me was just like, what if I just quit my job and sold wine? Like,
right. Oh yeah.
I love being a priest, but that little part of my brain was like, gosh, that sounds nice.
I mean, I want less responsibility. Just in general. Yeah. I would love to wait tables again. And not that was an easy job. It's not an easy job. And I don't envy the people who do it, but I do envy the people who do it a little bit.
But there is something about like just being able to, like, when your shift is done, you take your tips and you go home. I always think about that when we were growing up, there was that cartoon where the dog would be chasing the coyote. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, and then the bell would ring, like the clock, the 5 o'clock whistle would blow, and they'd stop chasing each other and they'd go clock out and see you tomorrow, Sam. Like it was this very sort of like, well, like we're done. Like even the predators and the prey take a break. Like but there's no like clocking out, man. There's no clocking out of this. And that's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's part of the gig. Like that's fine.
If anyone hears me and thinks like, oh, he doesn't like what he does, like I love what I do, but I'm also, I think that prior to the pandemic, I thought that my tolerance for the work was inexhaustible. And it turns out that is not true. And if you hear that as like my tolerance for you all, like if you're watching and you're like, but you're my priest, does this mean you're tired of me? Like, I mean, I am, but not the way you think. Like I'm not tired of you, but it's like the emotional availability with which we live our lives and the way that we are willing to be part of people's lives is really powerful. But the idea that it would be really powerful and not take a chunk out of us is actually kind of naive of me, that I could do this work and it wouldn't sort of like take a chunk out of me, is, I don't know. I think it's anyways. So I think the last year and a half has been really rich and rewarding, and also has told me that I will be a person who will know that it'll be okay to retire when the time comes.
Yeah, I think one of the things about the last year and a half is that to some degree everyone was in some kind of crisis. And even at a large church, even with 10 clergy people, I would have not been able to address the crises that everyone was going through. And because of that, I let a lot of people down. And I don't know how to, there are definitely good reasons why I let a lot of people down. The church let a lot of people down or whatever. But to kind of live with that and like be aware of that, and just the sheer amount that everyone was going through, including me. Like I've had my own kind of family crises and stuff during this past year and a half that have been really hard to deal with, and also care for a lot of other people. It's that part of it has been very hard, and it's a little bit at a point right now where I feel like I can either in my role as a solo clergy person, like be a chaplain and really dedicate myself to caring for people in, tough moments and crises and stuff, or I can try to grow the church and foster discipleship and, lift up new lay leaders and things like that. And I just cannot do both.
No. Well, and it's crazy to think that we could have at some point, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's like, yeah. Yep. I don't know. I'm still sorting it all out. I'm still sorting through my feelings on all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you just said, like we, in the last 18 months, we moved, like literally sold a house, bought another house, moved down the street, and we and suffered all of our own stuff. I mean, I'm still just literally scared for my children. They just aren't vaccinated.
Yes.
And I understand, I genuinely understand that the odds of them getting COVID are low, that the odds of them getting COVID and getting sick are lower, that the odds of them getting COVID and getting really sick and going to the hospital are even lower than that, and that the odds of them dying are even lower than that. I get that intellectually. And also it's a completely random thing that we don't fully understand. And there are mutations that are occurring that are making it more dangerous, and we don't know. And you and I were talking in the portion of our show that was not recorded, that we thought was being recorded, about like the like about our own sort of like personal impatience with people not being vaccinated at this point. And I think about it from a level of like, you are keeping this thing going alive, which gives more opportunities for mutation, which has the capacity to damage my family. And then I turn into like a Papa Bear. Not to mention just a selfish priest who's like, hey, here's the thing. Like I wish I could do my job the way that I
want my old job back.
Right. I actually liked my job. I mean, I like it now, but I really liked it before. And I'm ready to like it again. It's not like I'm like, I could like this job again, and that's been hard. And you mentioned something, Kira, that's so painful to me, which is that we disappoint people during all this.
Yeah. I
have flippant responses to that, because that's how I get through a lot of things.
And yeah, right. Part of me is like, what do you people expect of me?
Well, yeah. And I mean, I always like, literally one of my favorite quotes about leadership is that good leadership is just disappointing people at a rate they can handle.
Yeah.
And so like, I feel like in that sense, I've been a pretty good leader.
Yeah.
I'm definitely disappointing people, but they haven't all left. So,
yes.
But they're the kind of disappointment I think there's almost like a macro disappointment of being part of a church community. And there are people like our friend Betsy, who's on now. Like Betsy's someone who has found ways. She's a person who, and she wouldn't mind me saying this, like she was for the first, until she was vaccinated and until really a month or two after she was vaccinated, she was completely isolated. She lives alone with her cats and her puzzles and her TV. And she stays in touch with people she does all the things. She gets on Zoom, she gets on FaceTime, she's on Facebook, she's on our Bible studies, but physical freaking contact was nil for her for like no hugs, no physical contact for over a year. But she found ways to stay connected to the church, and she was still really unhappy, not because we did anything wrong, just because that's a problem we can't solve.
Right.
But then you have people side by side with her who are part of the church who aren't getting involved and aren't staying connected the way that she is. And then they're like, I feel really I have someone who loves our church, deeply connected, deeply involved. And she's just like, I just don't feel connected to my church. And my first reaction is defensiveness. Like,
right.
Well, why aren't you doing this, and this? But the reality is like, this time is insane.
Yeah.
I saw something recently that was a Venn diagram, like the two circles and they're connected. And one's like, it's the apocalypse. And the other one was like, we're still working. And like, it's like this. And they're like, and the arrow's like, we're in the middle part. Why are we in the middle part? Like, why is that a thing? And I was like, and someone messaged me and they're like, this morning, I posted that on Instagram. A friend of mine was like, why does this feel so real? And I said, because it's real. Yeah. Because this is unquestionably an apocalypse. And we are unquestionably just trying to act like everything's normal.
Yeah.
And then we are like, well, Kira, we're starting program year up next week.
I know. I don't know what to do. And and it's so frustrating, and I feel almost like I'm like gaslighting myself sometimes. Like,
right, this is normal. I don't feel normal. I'm saying this to myself. This is normal, right?
And like, we're all walking around with all of this trauma from the last like 18 months or whatever and beyond, most likely, on top of like whatever our own life stories are. And and I'm writing my emails to try and answer accounting questions.
Right.
Like,
yep.
There's just there's like this one angel or something. I don't know if it's an angel or a devil on my shoulder going like, does this really matter?
The world is falling apart. And do you know what I'm thinking about? Will I be able to raise enough money this fall?
Yeah.
For my church, which I care about because it's jobs for people. It's real humans who work here, and this is their living. It's
the mission and ministry that you do.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so will I be able to prove this is the sickness? Will I be able to prove to people that have we been there sufficiently in their minds enough that they see the point in making a financial commitment to us that will continue to allow us to do the work that we are doing, which, by the way, I happen to think is phenomenal work, but I hope that's communicating well enough, and there is like a self-gaslighting in terms of like, or like I don't know about you, but I have to give myself lots of pep talks.
Ooh, yeah.
You're doing great. It's that Tom Papa bit. Like, you're doing great. You're doing great. You're doing great. Like, Phil, like what can you expect? I'm at the gym every morning now again.
Oh, good for you.
Like, right. And as you can tell, I look exactly the same, but I feel like I'm like,
you're moving your body in a way that feels good to you.
That's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm reading. Did you know?
For your mind too.
I read when I'm so I go to the gym, and how people are like, oh, I hate the machines. Like, you can't, like, they get boring. I'm like, nope. I want a machine. I want a book. I put earphones in. I like listen to John Prine and I'm reading East of Eden right now.
Okay.
And I'm just literally just plowing through this great American novel while listening to folk music and like sweating. like this.
That's like so, I mean, my brain hurts thinking about all of that stimulation.
Yeah, that's me. There's this movie that was not very well appreciated. Probably wasn't good, but I liked it. A few years back, where Ben Affleck plays like an autistic assassin. Sure.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Called like The Accountant or something.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like really good with numbers, and he's like this crazy accountant, like beautifully wonderful, good accountant, but then also like he's a hitman.
Yeah.
I don't see why this movie wasn't the biggest hit of all time.
Right.
But because of like whatever kind of neuro divergence he experiences,
Mm-hmm.
like the way that he calms down as he like goes into this room and he blasts this like seriously loud heavy metal music and like sits in the space while the music is blaring. And I remember watching it being like, yeah, I get that. I literally I'm at the gym with lights on, 20 TVs everywhere. I'm reading a book and I'm listening to music and I'm on the thing. And that actually, I'm like, oh, good. Got it. This makes sense.
This is fine.
Every once in a while I have to turn the music down, but usually I don't. Usually I'm like, nope, this is about the amount of just sheer like energy that I need to have. Is that weird? That's weird, right? Is that weird?
I mean,
it's okay. I'm not feeling judged.
Yeah,
Talk
like,
to me. It's okay. Is that weird?
It feels weird to me.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I trust you. So you can be like, Phil, that's like, because I know you'll also be like, I also know you'll be like, do whatever you got to do, buddy.
Right. Like, especially because, you're not reading like a comic book or something. Like you're reading,
Steinbeck.
I was like, the guy who wrote Grapes of Wrath. What's
that
his
guy?
name?
The guy. It's what I want to. So he grew up in the Episcopal Church, and so he always like has like a characters in the altar guild.
Mm.
I'm always just like, yeah.
Yeah.
So his mom was very clearly on the altar guild when he was growing up because he mentions the altar guild more than once.
Yeah.
Can you imagine watching us right now and not being an Episcopalian and just being like, the hell is an altar guild?
What are these people talking about?
The name altar guild is like, it's sure loaded.
Well, when I started dating my now husband, who is very unchurched and
lucky guy,
trying to like toss it around terms like, oh, my senior warden, and I have a phone call with the canon to the ordinary.
Yeah. And
the altar guild, the vestry, like
he definitely is like, so you went to Hogwarts, right? like where's your wand?
Right. Like the ministry of evangelism or something. Like it's a lot of words.
Yep. It is. And I love it. Like I love the words. It's fantastic. And the altar guild, for instance, like they're amazing. Like Chris just says, it's exactly what you think. A guild of magical people that make and study extreme magic. Like that's actually basically right.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about it with people, you're like, I'm always like, look, I'm going to describe something to you. And I know it's weird. I always try to when you're talking to normal people, do you try to like change the words? So I'll say
my vestry, it's like a board of trustees, or
right. Exactly. So I'll be like, so I have like a vestry. It's like a board. I'll be like, I have a board. And so like the president of that board is like my senior, but it's like president. So I'm like, so I'm on the phone with like the president of the board of the church. Mm-hmm. And like, that's easier for you to understand. Right. And like Chris asks people like, what the heck is a rector? Cause that sounds really appealing. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the word rector comes from the word rex. Like, I'm pretty sure we're connected to like, we're like we're the little ruler of this is our little fiefdom.
Trying to explain to people the various different roles and what is a canon and what is a dean and all of that. Like, yeah, if somebody says like, oh, what is a rector? I'm like, oh, it's like the lead pastor, like, or the senior pastor, depending on somebody's tradition, trying to explain
it's odd
that to them.
It's odd. Do you, when you work out, you like go out into like the cheap showiness of nature though, don't you?
Well, lately I've just been doing a lot of dog walking and
as well you should. By the way, I was with some other friends and they were playing with their dog and I just called their dog Rosie because I was thinking about your dog.
My dog's Ruth.
Ruth. Who's Rosie?
I
Why
don't
do I have this dog? I am screwed up. Do you call her Ruthie sometimes?
I do, yeah.
I'm a mess.
But
Anyways, you got this new dog and she's changed your life. Can we just say that?
yeah, we walk a lot. I listen to podcasts. Sometimes when I walk her, sometimes I'll do some yoga at home, and I keep thinking about getting back into swimming.
Yeah, you
When I was in Colorado with
You were
my
like a
best
swimmer,
friend,
right?
yeah. Yeah, when I was in Colorado with my best friend, we did some open water swimming. And I was like, this was nice. I should get back into this. And it's just hard to like, man, the other day I got up bright and early and I took the dog for her walk and I came home and I ate breakfast and then I just sat there.
Yeah.
Like I could not get going to like take a shower and get ready for work and like go into the office. I was just like, nope.
No, all those things sound terrible.
I know. I'm done.
It took every ounce of like self-control for me to go to work today. And I like my job.
Yeah.
Ugh. Do I? I do. But I'm like, I don't want to do anything. If you're just joining us, you should start at the beginning where we were talking about how this pandemic has screwed us up.
Yeah.
That's today. That's what we're really talking about.
I just think, and I it's hard to be both honest and like without scaring people.
Yes.
I do think we are all carrying around, I'm kind of weighing this whole thing of like, we're all under stress. We're all under this trauma. We're all trying to like navigate this very weird situation without a lot of guidance from like anyone that matters.
Yeah.
And,
right.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to have grace with myself. I need to like, yeah, you're doing great. You need to like give yourself some grace that you're not going to be, operating at like your peak capacity. And then at the same time, like I look, it's hard to not kind of look around at like staff or whoever and just be like, oh, why can't you get your stuff together? Like, or like other people. And it's like, well, everyone's kind of going through this, but it's just this weird balance of feeling like we have to be quote unquote productive, whatever that looks like in whatever position that we're in.
Oh yeah.
And feeling like being productive is sort of impossible.
And yeah, it's hard to understand what productivity looks like. And that's productivity is how we've understood our value.
Yeah.
For so long. We're just going to go with Betsy. Betsy's going to the beach. She's going to Martha's Vineyard. We should all just join her.
Yeah. Well, I'm going out to the desert on Friday. So
yeah, where are you going?
My husband's family has a house in a artist commune that used to be a mining town in northeastern Nevada.
Okay.
It is nowhere.
That sounds bananas, but okay, great.
Yeah, it's
mostly
lovely.
I'm jealous.
A very relaxing place. There's nothing to do except like watch the birds.
So northeastern Nevada is closest to like Utah and Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, it's about 5-hour
Wyoming?
drive from Salt Lake City and about 4-hour drive from Boise, Idaho.
Okay. All right. So how are you getting there?
So you fly, the closest airport is in Elko, Nevada.
Obviously.
And there are 2 flights a day from Salt Lake City to Elko.
So you fly from Nashville to Salt Lake and then from Salt Lake to Elko.
Mm-hmm. And then it's about a 60-minute drive to Tuscarora.
All right.
So it's it's nice and remote, and it is it's mining country, which is why there's even an airport in Elko to kind of like fly in all the mining people.
Like copper and silver in Nevada?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's beautiful country. It's just it's mountainous and big skies, and
you'll get to relax.
Which
means we won't get to be together next week, but we will have an episode next week.
Right. We've got a special guest.
I have a special guest named Max. Max is a parishioner, and Max is a parishioner who during their time since I've been here came out as trans and began the transition process. And we actually at our church 2 weeks ago had our first ever renaming liturgy at the church, and it was with Max. We blessed their new name and sort of did like a liturgical release of their old name and an embracing of the new name and a blessing of that event and that process. So they're going to be on with us next week, and we're going to talk with them about like what that experience was like and talk a little bit about sort of being a trans Christian who's Max has said the entire time this whole thing has gone on that the church has been a partner with them in all of this, and that the church has empowered them to be who they are, which is a dream come true for me, probably sort of mystifying to some others who don't necessarily. I think it goes to one of these spaces where you can churches actually be supportive and affirming and real and obvious ways in this area. And look, we're not groundbreaking here. Other churches have already done this, but it's still new for a lot of people and for a lot of Christians in particular.
Right. So, well, I mean, and it's different when it happens like in your parish, right? Like you can have all of these commitments and you can think that you're like affirming and accepting.
Yep.
And then when the rubber hits the road, sometimes people's reactions, surprise them or surprise us. And I think that's really lovely. Last year I was able to be a part of a renaming liturgy on Zoom with someone, and I think that liturgy is extraordinarily powerful.
Yeah. Now we took, there was a piece of something from the Book of Occasional Services, and then there was another liturgy that we found from another Episcopal church, and our liturgist put it together. Did the one that you were a part of include the renewal of the baptismal covenant?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It turns out when you connect the renaming to Abraham and Sarah and Israel and Peter and Paul, and then go further and connect all of that with our baptismal covenant and create a space for renewal for all of us, it turns out that it's like it'll like tear you down and build you back up again.
Yes.
Like you will become a different person through it. It's all of us. It was amazing. So you won't be with us next week, but Max will be with us. Hopefully you'll get to watch that at some point and see it.
Yes.
And that'll be great. But before we go, and friends, again, we know we had some technical difficulties today. Our apologies where it happens. It's not how we prefer to do things. And we will be back at it, and I assume in better shape next week. We've got people just working around the clock for us to make sure that it goes well next time. But our sincerest apologies. Before we go, Kira, I'm just simply brimming with curiosity. Whatever have you been listening to this last week?
I got on a Bo Burnham kick.
Oh,
because I mentioned Jeffrey Bezos in my sermon on Sunday, and so then that took me down a rabbit hole of most of the, I don't know to call it a soundtrack or what, from his newest special Inside,
which I've heard is just phenomenal.
It's a ride.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, that's the short version of what I've been listening to lately. What have you been listening to?
A lot of John Prine this past week.
Mm-hmm.
There's an album of his called Fair and Square that I'd never listened to before.
Yeah.
And there's he does a cover of a guy named Blaze Foley, a song called Clay Pigeons. I commend to you, since I don't try to make you listen to whole albums.
Right.
I commend to you the song Clay Pigeons.
Okay. I mean, John Prine is a, local guy.
He's
so
the real
was
deal.
a local guy.
Yes.
R.I.P.
Yes. Beautiful. Now his citizenship is in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard his song When I Get to Heaven?
Yes.
That's just a great song, but you should check out, and he has a song that's a little rough for our theological, for how I think Jesus is, but kind of fits with my attitude these days. He sings a song called Some Humans Ain't Human. It's worth your time.
Yeah. Maybe not exactly accurate anthropologically, but like we get the emotion behind it.
Yeah. We really do. And then tonight, knocking on wood here, which is just superstitious and therefore I shouldn't do it. We're going to our first concert since before the pandemic.
Ooh, nice.
We're seeing St. Vincent,
Yeah.
who I love, seen her here before. The show is indoors. Squeal. Not sure how I feel. They are doing proof of vaccination required to get in.
Yeah, I think when
and we will
no,
probably
she's
still
playing
mask
at a
even with
sin.
that.
But yeah, I'm going to see Big Thief on September 20th at the Ryman, and they're requiring proof of vaccination or negative test and masks. And I was like, I'm so glad that means I get to go.
Yeah. So we're gonna go, but it's general admission, and I don't know how like smushed we're gonna be to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
It's
I'm
this
very
weird
excited.
feeling, right? These days of like being excited, but also scared and nervous. And
Yeah, I would love for her to cancel. I would love nothing more than for her to, nothing big. I don't want anything bad to happen to St. Vincent. She's on her way to Cincinnati right now, and I only wish her good things. But I'd love for her to have a cold and be like, can't do it. I got a cold. We'll reschedule for 2022. I'm
right.
like, yes, yes. That's how I feel right now. And I have all the other tickets I have are for next year. And I just, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know, Kira. I don't know. Freaking me out. All right.
Well, I will not be with you all next week, but I hope that Phil will see you next week. And
yes, I will.
Things will go a little bit more smoother. I mean, better to have them go be a little bumpy with me than with a guest, right?
Yes, I agree with that completely. If this had all been happening while we had a guest, it would have been problematic.
Yes.
But it's just us. So friends, thank you for your patience. Thanks for finding us. We really appreciate it. We love being with you. And Kira, I won't see you next week, but we'll see you the week after that. And everyone else, join us next week at this time, and we will have some fun. All right.